A federal judge blasted former Attorney General Bill Barr for his handling of the Mueller investigation, accusing him of misleading her and Congress. In a decision released last night, Judge Amy Berman Jackson called Barr disingenuous and ordered the Justice Department to release the redacted portions of a March 2019 memo from DOJ lawyers that Barr said advised him not to charge Trump with obstruction. The Justice Department at the time withheld the full memo from a watchdog group, arguing that it contained privileged legal advice and internal deliberations of an undecided case. However, Judge Jackson says her review of the case shows it was more legal strategy than advice, and that the decision not to charge had already been made. Jackson also criticized the 4-page summary of the Mueller report that Barr provided to Congress, which Trump then used to declare that he was exonerated. In the letter, Barr claimed that the special counsel investigation did not support charges of obstruction and that he came to that conclusion based on the advice contained in the memo. But according to the judge, emails show Barr's letter to Congress and the memo were, quote, written by the very same people at the very same time. She adds, quote, the emails show not only that the authors and the recipients of the memorandum are working hand in hand to craft the advice, but that the letter to Congress is the priority and it is getting completed first.
So, Willie, you know, the federal judge said what many of us assumed from the beginning, that the Attorney General of the United States was not playing Attorney General, was not doing his job as Attorney General. He was engaged instead in crisis management, in spin, in being Donald Trump's PR agent, in trying to blunt the impact of the Mueller report. And in so doing, said, in effect, that Bill Barr, the Attorney General of the United States, lied to Congress, lied to the American people, and lied to the federal courts about the Mueller report and about the findings in the Mueller report and about the, quote, decision as to whether Donald Trump would be charged with obstruction of justice. And, of course, all the Trump hacks immediately took Bill Barr's lies as the gospel, and then it continued and continue even today, saying, the Mueller report was much ado about nothing. It was a Russian hoax. They didn't find that he committed obstruction of justice, when in fact Mueller gave 10 examples of that.
Yeah, Mueller laid out chapter and verse all the moments where he did, in fact, Donald Trump obstruct justice, just said it wasn't his job to recommend those charges against the President of the United States. And because he did not, former Attorney General Barr stepped into that void and said, well, I've read the Mueller report before anybody else has, read it very quickly, by the way. Here's my 4-page summary to Congress, and it's my judgment that the president should not be prosecuted based on the findings of this report. So that's what Judge Jackson said last night. Let's bring in New York Times reporter Michael Schmidt. He's an MSNBC national security analyst, NBC News correspondent covering national security and intelligence. Ken Dilanian also is with us. Michael, this actually was 2 nights ago that Judge Jackson handed down this decision. Walk us through a little bit of what's behind it. What was she looking into, and what did she say specifically about Attorney General Barr?
She's looking into whether a document about the obstruction decisions should be released. But that is sort of like a sideshow to what she is really, doing or getting at, or the most important thing about this. And that is her basically putting herself out there and criticizing the former Attorney General, as you guys were laying out, for how he handled the end of the Mueller investigation. And I was even going back just now looking at Barr's statements when he holds this press conference, right even as the report is being released. And he's going to these great lengths to try and help the president, as Joe was saying, as essentially his press agent, saying things about how Trump had cooperated so much with the Mueller investigation and that they had handed over everything. I mean, Donald Trump refused to meet with the Mueller investigators. He refused to sit and answer basic questions about them, even though he was president of the United States. But Barr was painting this picture of a White House that had opened up its doors and allowed unfettered access to, essentially unfettered access to, whatever they wanted or needed, and that there was no piece of information that Mueller's investigators could not get. And, the problem about the Trump era was that there was so much going on that it was hard, to keep track of and to document everything as it was going. And we did do this at the time. But to go back and look at those statements and see the Attorney General essentially, acting as the president's defense lawyer as early as April of 2019, you can see the path that Trump was on being enabled by the Justice Department in what he did. Remember, this is before he was impeached the first time. So it's, the judge, one of 3 judges in Washington, that's gone to this sort of extreme measure of criticizing Barr publicly for how he handled these politically sensitive investigations.
And Ken Dilanian, the judge, accuses Bill Barr and his department of being, quote, disingenuous to this court with respect to the existence of a decision-making progress that should be shielded by the deliberative process privilege. And again, says that in so doing, they misled the court, they misled Congress, and they misled the American people.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. As you pointed out earlier, disingenuous is a polite lawyer word for lying. And
right.
That's what she said, both about their conduct in this lawsuit, in this Freedom of Information Act lawsuit, and about Barr's conduct in issuing this summary. As a side note, I would say that this ruling shows how broken the Freedom of Information law is, because lawyers claim this privilege all the time, even when it's not merited. But to your earlier point about Barr acting as Trump's press agent, there's a line in here, Judge Berman Jackson says, that just really struck me about the Office of Attorney General and the Office of Deputy Attorney General. That was Rod Rosenstein. She said when they were preparing this memo, the 2 offices were working in tandem to create a narrative to counter the special counsel's findings and cast the president in the most positive light possible. So that's what was going on here. They were all scrambling to take this Mueller report, which they, as she pointed out, Barr barely had time to skim at this point, and cast it in the most favorable light possible for the president. Now, I have to say, as Andrew Weissman pointed out, former Mueller prosecutor Andrew Weissman, in his own book, he criticized the Mueller investigation for not only did they not charge Trump with obstruction of justice, remember, Mueller made this sort of strange decision that he didn't even feel like he could characterize the evidence and say what other prosecutors said, which was, hey, in a normal case, if this wasn't the president, there was plenty of evidence here to charge the president with obstruction of justice. Mueller didn't do that, and he opened the door, in some sense, for Barr to take the action he did. And, history will judge whether that was a wise decision on Mueller's part. It was a careful and scrupulous decision. He thought he was following the ethics and the law of what he was tasked to do. But this judge really hammering Barr over the idea that he quickly concluded that, the president didn't obstruct justice, guys.
Hey, thanks so much for watching our YouTube channel. You can follow up on today's top stories and breaking news, or catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.